Welcome back to the Conservative. Hi there, I'm Mike Lannon, your host, and this is PEG TV, and this is where I sit for the last, or have sat for the last nearly 11 years now. Could be a little longer than that, but it's been a lot of shows, and thank you for watching, and I appreciate your time. Got a couple of things that are on my mind, and I'm going to talk about the first one, which is House Bill 57, and seeing that the powers to be in Montpelier can't give people that really know an opportunity to really talk about it and tell you the truth. I thought I'd spend a few minutes here and let you know what H57 is all about. Little background history on all of this anyways. Most of you can look up this information and fact check and you'll find out. A woman named Margaret Sanger decided that there needed to be a way to eliminate the Black American population. And so she went to work, strongly went to work at trying to find a pill, a birth control pill that would stop Black Americans from having babies. That's the truth. That's where it all started. And then along came a doctor by the name of Dr. Charles Rock. Dr. Charles Rock invented the birth control pill. Came out of Johnson & Johnson. You can look that up too. How do I know Dr. Charles Rock? Relative. Yeah, I know him, know who he was. And then along came the desire to eliminate babies during the pregnancy, better known as abortion. When I was a 8 or 9 year old child, I had a teacher once tell me that there were going to be 2 words in my lifetime I had better come to know, and I couldn't believe it. 8 years old, 9 years old, I can still remember where I was when I heard them because it was just a shock to me because I didn't know what the words meant when they got done talking about it. The first word was abortion and the second word was euthanasia. Abortions are killing of babies, and euthanasia is killing of people that are no longer productive, contributory members of society. In other words, old people. So those are the 2 words that stuck in my mind all the way through school, trying to figure out what it was all about. Didn't know. Most of you that are below the age of 18 still don't know what it's all about. Just hear the words and you're not quite sure. So along with the birth control pill and promiscuity, meaning that sex at any old time was okay to have, rather than going back to the old value system, which was to avoid sex like the plague, because it was supposed to be a cherished value for a marital bed. And during the 60s, with all that free love and all that kind of stuff, that just went out the window. And we, gullible people, allowed culture to change, and we just allowed it to happen. And here we are now in 2019 with that kind of activity going on like crazy and all the things that are associated with it. STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, that's what STD means, running rampant through the world and running rampant in the United States and running rampant through the teenage population. And there's some STDs that are very hard to get rid of, if you can ever get rid of them. So you can go all into that science and figure that all out. But I really do want to talk for the few minutes that I'm given here about H57. So you all know, since the 1970s with Roe v. Wade, the abortion issue has traveled all the way through the political system. There's those that are very vehemently opposed to any kind of an abortion. The conservative view would be with them. And then there are those who believe that an abortion is the right of a woman to choose to have an abortion. And those are the people that are pro-choice. So we have pro-choice, we have pro-life, and some people, I guess, are in the middle. They don't have any clue what we're talking about. So what does H57 do? H57 takes another step down the road and says you can take and have a baby from the time it is conceived till the time that it is born and decide to abort. Let's talk about that for a second, the biology of it all. This argument has been said for a long time and been rejected by tons of people because they believe that a woman has the choice. Sperm cell is alive, egg is alive. They're both alive during the course of the woman's prior to her menstrual cycle. The sperm cell, millions of them, have a great deal of difficulty getting to the egg. Pregnancy occurring is not an easy kind of a thing to happen. But once that sperm is able to penetrate the egg, the cell explosion begins. Sperm 1, egg 1, that makes 2. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32, and the explosion begins. And immediately life begins, because as quickly as those cells begin to break into more and more cells, okay, quick science here, the spinal column in the brain begin to form. And that's one of the first things formed, and it's pretty well formed in a very small fishhook shape in the first 3 weeks. And that's where this stem cell research comes from, because if they can get their needle in there and get those stem cells, maybe do all kinds of things that would prevent some diseases, change certain things for people that are very, very sick. And most people will tell you that that's a wrong thing to do, is to be taking that living tissue, that live tissue, and make it into something else, because it's, again, destroying the baby. So you come all the way out here, all the arguments, all the way along from you can't kill a baby except in the first 3 weeks. Then it becomes the first month. Then it becomes the second month. Then it becomes the third month. Then all the way up to where we're now today with H57 saying the baby can be given birth. And then you decide. Well, that's murder. That's also infanticide, okay? Infanticide, okay? You're killing the baby as an infant. Well, let's go back to the early ancient civilizations. At one time, and this is biblical, there was a god named Baal, B-A-A-L. And the abomination at that time was the killing of the firstborn. And you know that the killings of the firstborn are mentioned many, many times in the Old Testament. The Old Testament comes from the early Sumerian scripts, and probably prior to that, because we have ancient languages prior to the Sumerians that probably have those stories. The old flood story and the creation stories are all there in the ancient books. Just can't decipher some of them. So the ancient books become a good chunk of the Old Testament, because it's about one single God. Most of them at that time were worshiping every god that you could think of for every kind of subject. Along came the Hebrews, and they believed that there was one God, and wrote those texts. I suspect they wrote those texts from a belief system that came up prior to the Sumerians. Well, within that structure, okay, was the belief in life. And that belief in life runs through the Old Testament all the way up to the New Testament. So we're now out here to where we are today with H57 and the destruction of the baby at birth. Here's the conservative view. That should never, ever happen. So why did they get to that point? Well, here's what's going on. In the front end here, when I have a baby, and it hasn't been born yet, but I want to abort, late-term abortion. What's the doctor got to do? This is a fully grown baby now. Well, the doctor has to go in and begin taking out the baby. Notice I said begin taking out the baby. Well, what does that mean? It means taking out parts. Pretty hard to grab a baby that's not ready to be born and pull the baby out in one whole baby. Doesn't happen. So they lay a tray out and they pull the parts out. An arm here, a hand here, leg here. Yeah, gross, huh? The head finally comes out and they start counting baby parts. If you miss a baby part, girl can become very infected. They got to do a lot of work to make sure that the baby is all counted and that the mother is going to survive. So what's the easier way to do it? The easiest way is to have the baby fully born. Don't have to count any body parts. Just take the baby out, breathing, kill it. Kill it right there. And now you don't have to count body parts, because it's all right there. It's one whole functioning child. That is murder. So they can pass H57 all they want, and they can yell and scream at those of us who know what's going on. You can yell and scream at me at the TV set, or you can stop and think, does that make sense? Is that what they're actually doing? Yes, that's what they're doing. So that is totally wrong. And the state of Vermont legislators, one of them right from this Rutland County, two of them actually, but one knows better. One I don't believe is a practicing Christian, or a practicing of any religion, but one is, and that we've just sent up there. And when Mr. Knott, that's his name, gets to see me and gets to see you, we should not allow him to go back because he's defying the will of Rutland County. Rutland County has never, ever voted for the abortion bills. They've always been against it. We're one of the most conservative remaining counties in the state. Please keep it that way. At least we'll have a fighting chance maybe in one little county to keep voicing a different opinion than those folks up there in Chittenden County and up there in the north who for whatever reason believe that they're a whole lot smarter than us here in the south. You know, they've got the college education, they've got the college professors all living there, they've got the money all up there, they've got everything. So we understand that those folks in that county, which is quite frankly 50% of the state, lives up there near the lake, and they don't care what you think down here. Well, enough of us get together, they'll care, and I think they were shocked to see the bus that went up to Montpelier to testify against this H57, the birth of a baby and then killing it. And even though they claim now that coming out of the House, they voted it out of the House, that it's slightly modified, well, that slight modification doesn't change anything about what I just told you. Slight modification of the words. H57 is the plan to allow a baby to be born and then let it be killed. That's the way it is, okay? Now, obviously, if that wasn't the truth, they wouldn't have H57 on the table. Why would they change the ability to abort a baby prior to its birth? That's already on the books. That's already law. They can do that. So H57 is to take it one step further. Ha-ha! Now we're born. First word I ever learned, and I started this program out, abortion. Done. Now we go down the road. Well, let's see. The baby makes it to year 1, but is flawed, dysfunctional. Don't want to have to use that baby for anything. You know, like I watched a testimony in 2013 by a Down syndrome child in front of U.S. Congress. What a wonderful child. Watched a girl last night with Down syndrome on CBS News at the end of the newscast. What a great golfer. They're not the same as all of us, but they are the same as we are. They're humans. Okay, they bleed the same. They contribute to society as much as anybody else. And we need everybody in society for our own unselfish reasons of humility and gratefulness, the things that the universe looks for us to express anyway. But 1 year down the line, dysfunctional, I think it's going to be an easy slope now to say, well, if we can kill a baby here, why not 12 months later? But better than that, let's get out to about, retirement age, 65. Now I'm 65, I'm retired. Don't know that I really am very productive anymore. Next question is going to be, well, how much of a contributor are you to society? Fixed income, not contributing a lot of new taxes because it's fixed. Now you're 70, now you're 75. 75, starting to age a bit, starting to get a little unhealthy. Wait a second, if you're a male, you're already going past the insurance actuarial account numbers for how long you're supposed to live anyway. You're a girl, you're out to 80. Now you're starting to get there. All right, now we've got the fastest aging population in the state of Vermont, 80 and above. Largest state in the union with centurions, people that are 100 years of age. Can't afford them. Can't afford to have so many 80-year-olds in the state. Who's going to pay for them? Can't afford to have the 100-year-old people in the state because the majority of those have to live in nursing homes. They aren't able or capable of living in their own homes anymore. Guess, based on what we know right now, we can just turn on the morphine drip or do it even some other way. And I'm sure that those of you that are watching that are in the medical profession, you know ways to do it faster than the morphine drip. One way or the other, past the age of 70, we've got to start thinking about whether or not you should continue on. Now that's a political conservative viewpoint. That's what I think is actually happening. And people can yell and scream and jump up and down and just don't bother because that's my opinion. This is an opinion show. And if you have a different opinion, get on down here to PEG TV and put yourself out on the line and let's hear what you have to say. And better than that, I'd love to have the argument with you. So come on in. Let's let's have a debate, see which one of us wins that, because I'm going to come to that debate full of more facts than I've just handed to you. Now I'm going to switch subjects to an even more disgusting thing that's going on in our U.S. Congress. In our U.S. Congress, they've just submitted a alleged compromise bill on the border wall. The president is looking for $6 billion. They've come up with a compromise of $1.375 billion. No wall. But in that package that they've sent over to him to sign before Friday night of the 16th of February, loaded with the greatest number of pieces of legislative pork that the Democrats could throw in. It's disgusting. Now, for a country that is at $22 trillion in debt, to add more to a package to try to embarrass the President of the United States, because I hope he doesn't sign it, but he probably will, because one way or the other, he's going to build this wall. He's already signaled, he's already telecast, he's already spoken about the fact that he plans to build this wall, come hell or high water. And so what does that mean? He's found ways to find the money. He'll probably take it right out of the military budget. And out of the military budget, he'll take whatever amount of dollars he needs to build a wall. Now, he's already said it doesn't have to be a concrete wall. In places, it's going to be wire. If you've ever been down on the border, as I have, you know that the Rio Grande flows in places where you can just walk across in about 5 minutes and you're back into the United States or you're back into Mexico. There's no way that you're going to secure that. The border runs right on the water, in some places right in the middle of the water. So that's not going to be secured that way. But you got 2,500 miles approximately of border on our southern border, and people are crossing it into the country, and it's illegal. Oh, well, we don't care. So that's the beginning of the slippery slope to that which is very dangerous in a law-abiding community. If we're a law-abiding citizenship, if we're a law-abiding nation, then we can't allow some laws to be okay and some laws not to be okay. And that is a problem in our elite government system today. We have it coming down the pike every single year for the last 12 years. And I suspect it's longer than that, but it's been blatantly obvious in the last 12 years. For instance, we know that the FBI, who most of us should trust as our greatest law enforcement agency in the country, is as corrupt can be. Okay? They've got more mold in that FBI agency than most people have that don't wash their bathtub for a month. You know, it's a blue mold that just keeps creeping along slowly. You can't really see it until you can smell it, and it gets worse and worse and worse. You all know what I'm talking about, okay? It's a creeping cancer. You don't see it. You don't know how to get rid of it. Well, we know how to get rid of it. You cut it out, okay? You do. You get rid of it by cutting it out, and hopefully you cut it all out at one time. So why would we even be worried about that? Well, about 2 years from now, because we can't have a speedy trial in this country anymore. We defy the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights that gives us the right to a speedy trial, and we just let it linger and linger and draw it and draw it and draw it. And so the FBI agents, at least 5 of them, are probably going to wind up in jail because they lied to the FISA court, the court that allows the Trump investigation to have ever begun. Now, we are at $17 million with Mr. Mueller in his investigation. And in $17 million, if I couldn't find out whether or not a citizen of this country had been involved in collusion, then I should have to give that $17 million back. That is the worst economic crime I can think of. $17 million, and what have we got for it? Nothing. And we're not going to find anything. There's nothing there because that was already said by one of the 5 guys that is probably going to go to jail for having lied to the FISA court. So what is the FISA court? FISA court is the court that gives you a warrant to start investigating an American citizen for something that they have done. So in order to go to the court, you have to know for a fact that they've actually committed the crime. No, didn't happen. Okay, they didn't have that information. So what they did, Hillary Clinton and her campaign, and it probably wasn't Hillary herself, although it wouldn't surprise me if she was in the room, because I think these people do know what's going on. I think Obama knows what's going on. I think he knows what happened in Benghazi. I think he wasn't around that night because he already knew what was going on. Probably authorized it. Wouldn't that be awful? Find out that Benghazi was authorized by the President of the United States, and we lost four. We lost an ambassador and three great military people for trying to protect the ambassador. Don't know that. That's conspiracy theory. Don't like to deal in that, but I'll just throw it out there. Anyway, we're down to where we have this decision made to go to Russia and find out if there's any corruption there, because everybody knows that Donald Trump has been trying to build some form of a business relationship in Moscow to build a golf course, or a hotel, or both. And that began to unravel, and he couldn't get it done, and the Russians didn't want any part of it, and so Donald Trump pulled away from it. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party is hiring people from Russia to build lies against Trump and against his associates. One of those lies, of course, blew up in their face because they allegedly had, from a guy named Steele, who was the spy that was involved with all of this, had evidence that Donald Trump had been in a bedroom with a call girl and had done a golden shower. And a golden shower is a girl that gets peed on. Disgusting, right? Well, come to find out, lie. Donald Trump wasn't involved at all. Never been in that hotel. And the person that they claimed was there had never been even in Russia. So, you know, these are the kinds of things that are happening. So they present this dossier. And the dossier, for whatever reason, gets leaked out into the press. Easy way to accuse a man of a crime. And the dossier is filled with lies. And we know that. But they used the dossier to go to the FISA court and get the warrant to begin to do the wiretaps and all the other things that they're still trying to use to bring Donald Trump down. And the reason that they're doing all of this is because they felt that, one, they were going to find some scoopy-doopy stuff to destroy his campaign. They didn't find it. Oh, and then the shocker. Hillary gets beat, and beat bad, in the Electoral College. And yeah, she won in the big cities. I hope we never change where the big cities are going to control you and I, who live in small rural America. And as long as we have middle America, which is composed of many small little communities, we're probably not going to have anything but the good old Electoral College, which is what the Founding Fathers said would work best so far. So Hillary gets beat. Now the Democrats are really upset, and still are upset. They'll do anything they can to impeach Trump. They'll do anything they can to destroy him. They'll do anything they can to make his legislative processes fall into the sink. Well, into the toilet and flush them down. That's what they're trying to do. Well, they're in big, big trouble. For the very first time over in our bordering state, New York, Governor Cuomo and Charles Schumer, head of the Senate Minority Committee, have the lowest ever population poll numbers, popularity poll numbers. I mean, they're under 40%. That's worse than Trump. And so the press doesn't tell you those kinds of things, that these guys that are out there causing all kinds of trouble for the President of the United States have a worse public opinion poll for themselves than they do for Trump. So you got to go out and take a look at all these things, you know. This is so important that we understand. So this bill that held up the people from the government when they shut down the government, and those people that were out of jobs who've all been paid now, and there's a potential of another government shutdown. Don't think Trump's going to go down that road again. He didn't win any friends and influence people with it. He's going to have to figure out some other ways. But that bill has not only got that minuscule amount of money, because we're talking in $1 trillion, 1.375, I think is, or 1.35, I'm not quite sure, but it's a small amount of money. It's much smaller than what he asked for, and it's loaded with things that have nothing to do with our security on the southern border. Just loaded with it. So you can go and read that if you have an interest. I certainly have looked at it. I've certainly read through it. I'm telling you, it's loaded with unnecessary funding for programs that should not be funded. Now, with a $22 trillion debt, somebody had better start looking at whether or not we can continue to afford to fund the programs that we're funding. And my answer to that, another conservative view, is simple. No, we cannot. We have got to start thinking about cutting. Greatest president of the United States came right from Vermont, Calvin Coolidge. What did he do the first time he got into government? He cut taxes. He cut them massively, better than 50%. And then he cut government. He cut it massively, better than 50%. And we had what we call the Roaring 20s. People were making money. America was growing more rapidly than it had ever grown, ever. And now we have a president that is following that suit and has cut taxes tremendously. Now, we already have some people, because it's IRS time, upset because their bank account checks, these checks coming back from the IRS, are smaller than they were. What's wrong with these people? You got a tax cut, that means that you were getting more money than you did a year ago in your paycheck. Excuse me. And obviously, if you're getting more money in your paycheck and as part of the tax structure of the country, you're not going to get as much money back from your tax return. It makes sense, does it not? Sure it does. So your tax return has never, ever been a slush fund for money. It should not be looked that way. You should, in the front end, at the beginning of the year, set up your tax structure so that you're making the maximum amount of money per week that you can possibly make, because you have a better chance of spending and or saving that money than the government does. So the more money you give to the government prior to your tax return, the more they have to waste on frivolous budgetary items that you have no control over and aren't going to affect you in any shape, form, or fashion. Billions of dollars for scientific research on some of the scientific research that, look, I don't know what this new bill has, but I know in the past we've spent millions of dollars to study the sex life of tsetse fly. Who cares? And why would we spend that kind of money for that? I mean, it's craziness, okay? And you guys, there's all kinds of things on the internet that are reliable sources that can tell you where this money's going. And there are people that track this, and there's nonprofit organizations that track the abuse of the money that's down there in Washington. And we have got to stop that. If you're interested in saving the country, you're interested in not paying more taxes than you need to pay, then you need to get with it, get up off your couch like I did 11 years ago, and go and do something. The reason I sit here week after week, 26 shows a year for the last 11 years, is to let people know that they can do something different than what the press is telling you that you need to do, and or what the press is telling you that you need to believe. That's why I got involved, was that my wife was angry with the fact that I did not understand everything I was watching on TV, and I was getting more and more angry because it did not fit what I had been taught in the school systems about the Constitution of the United States. It did not fit my Christian belief system. It did not fit my values of a limited government. It did not do the things that I had believed and grown up to believe, and I think that is why I got involved. You should be doing the exact same thing. You should not be listening just to me and saying, okay, he's totally right. No, go find out for yourself. I say it almost every show that I broadcast. Do not ever get yourself into a position where you're just listening to one opinion. I love listening to the left, and I love listening to the right, and then I come to my own opinion. Sometimes I agree with the left, sometimes I agree with the right, but most of the time, I'm just making my own opinion. End of the show. Can you believe it? It's gone by that fast. See you next time. Thanks for watching.